Stephanie's had all kinds of different awards for philanthropic stuff that you won't get her to talk about, but like there's the Stuart Scott Award, the humanitarian awards, all these different things, and there's all the work you've done, but this thing that you've done with Connor's Cure, and there's a little boy, everybody, and I want to make sure I say Connor's name right because I knew about this before I met you. I remember this, but Connor Michalek.
Michalek, yeah.
And Connor was a little boy suffering from a very unique type of tumor, but he ended up passing away from brain cancer. Prior to that time, his hero was Bryan.
Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan. I'm thinking.
Bryan
I know Bryan the other way, right?
Yeah.
But Daniel Bryan, the character of Daniel Bryan. And it became something that just got into the hearts of WWE universe, not just you and your husband, but you and your husband then did something about it. And so can you talk about the little boy and how precious that cause is to you?
Yes. So I met Connor backstage after the Royal Rumble, which is one of our big pay-per-views in Pittsburgh. And one of our referees, Justin Roberts, introduced him to me. And I saw him, and I could tell he was sick from his physical appearance because he had a scar up the back of his head. He was bald. He had a big lump up here. But he was talking to Batista when I walked over and I met him. And Justin said, Connor, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Stephanie McMahon. And he looked up at me and he started telling me about the shirt he was wearing, which was Sheamus's shirt. Sheamus, who's like 6'5", 300 pounds, had come back from the ring and given Connor his shirt. So the shirt was dragging on the floor. And he starts to tell me, very excited, that this was his Sheamus shirt. And underneath that shirt, he had his Skylander shirt on. And underneath that shirt, he was wearing Daniel Bryan's t-shirt and how proud he was. And I thought, oh my goodness, you're the cutest little thing I've ever seen. He was so vivacious, and he was the same age as my oldest daughter. And I just fell in love with him. And I asked him for a hug. And he said, oh no, I can't do that. And I said, oh, why? And he said, well, because I give choke out hugs. And I don't want to choke you out. And I was like, try me, buddy. And he came over and gave me like the most wonderful hug. And then as I was standing up, his dad leaned down, and I can't help but cry every time because I just remember it so vividly. And he said, you know, we'd like to come back when you guys are in Pittsburgh in June, but Connor's probably not going to make it till then. And I couldn't believe he was that sick just because of his life force, you know? I mean, he looked sick, but he didn't act sick. And then I started just watching him. He's shadow boxing, and he's having a great time. And I went to say goodbye, and I gave him a kiss on the cheek, and it startled him a little bit. And I'll never forget how soft his little cheek was. And then he looked at me, and we said goodbye, and he started to walk away. And then he looked back at me, and I swear, and this is going to sound crazy, but I swear our souls touched in that moment. And I just feel like it all happened for a reason. And that night, we were on our bus, my husband and I, and I couldn't sleep because I was thinking, like, what can we do for this little boy? And there are a lot of kids like Connor. But what can we do for him? How can we help him? How can we help him hang on? And we came up with the idea to invite him to WrestleMania. So we did, and we did that all through Justin. And the doctors had said, I didn't know any of this. The doctors had said Connor would never make it, that he would never make the trip from Pittsburgh to New Orleans. And if he did, it would really be hard on him, that he wouldn't be himself. They said they really recommended against it. So we brought him to this event in Washington, D.C. ahead of WrestleMania, and he wasn't doing very well. And at that time, he made, for me and a few other people, these necklaces that took him 8 hours to make. They were very similar to these bracelets. They had round beads, and they had square beads, and they all had different messages. He did all of that. Because of his surgeries, his small motor coordination was off. But he did that. And he came in, and we gave him a full entrance. He came out with Daniel Bryan, to Daniel Bryan's music. He came down the ramp. This is during the day. All of the superstars were surrounding the ring. My husband was in the ring. He jumps off headset. My husband gets into the ring, And he says, come on, Connor, hit me. Hit me here. And Connor's like, I'm not going to hit you. I'm not going to do that. And he goes, come on. And Connor hauls off and gives him a little punch, and my husband goes down. And a referee who was standing on the side, Mike Chioda, dives in the ring, and he counts 1, 2, 3. And everybody cheers, and they go nuts. And Connor said to my husband, I gotcha. Isn't that so cute?
So cute.
So fast forward to WrestleMania, he made it. And not only did he make it, his dad told me he was able to feed himself. He was himself again. And this little boy had had cancer since he was 4. And he said, Steve said, that's Connor's dad, he said it was like I had my little boy back. And after Daniel Bryan won the championship that night, Daniel Bryan was the whole story of WrestleMania that year. And he had overcome the authority after like a storyline, after 6 months of oppression, and ultimately he defeated Triple H, ironically, and then went on in a triple threat match against Batista and Randy Orton to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. And he got out of the ring, and the first person he went over to was Connor. And he said, you helped me win this. You keep fighting.
Oh my gosh.
And Connor died in his dad's arms a couple weeks after that. And again, I was struck with, what can we do? How can we help? And that's when we decided to start Connor's Cure. And it started off as a fund with Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, because that's where Connor was treated. And just to tell you a lighthearted story about Connor, his favorite nurse's name was Stacy. And when she would come in to give him his chemo, he would boo her. Like, isn't that great? This little kid just booing her. It just called everything out for what it was, right? Made her laugh, made him laugh. Like, it sucked, right? There was no getting around it, and he just called it out for what it was. But so that's how we started Connor's Cure. And then, to your point, because he was a WWE fan, because there was just something so special about him, I truly do believe he came to WWE for a reason. That we could help. And we've now partnered with V Foundation, and we've raised over $2 million. We've helped over 200 families with things like parking vouchers, food vouchers, things you don't anticipate you're gonna need, you know, because children should not get cancer. They should not be sick with cancer.
Yep.
Anyway, that's my story.
It's a wonderful
that's
story.
Connor's story.
Thank you
And
for being willing to tell everybody about Connor
of
the
course,
Crusher, by the way.
I'll talk about Connor the Crusher all
Connor was
day
the
long.
Crusher, and
I love that little boy, and so
see
do
that you
so
do.
many people.